really my pleasure to welcome you to California Women Rising, which is supported by the California Endowment. And we've been working on this project the California Endowment has been working on it for a number of years, and we at the Women's Foundation have been part of it for the last 2 years. And I'm very, very pleased to introduce you to one very special person, which is Sonya young Aadam, who is not only a member of the advisory committee, she is an amazing human being and is also the executive director of California Black Women's Health Project. And Sonya not only is part of the California Women Rising work, but she's also a grant partner of the Women's Foundation and just an amazing person that we are very lucky to be able to be in relationship with. And then I want to introduce you to Brenda Susana Grow, who is now based in LA. Actually, both Sonya and Brenda are in LA, and who is a doula and who has joined us pre-pandemic. This is for folks who were in LA with us in 2019. Gosh, it's hard to even imagine that. We came together, and Brenda really came to offer some of her wisdom to the team, to the group that was in LA. So it's wonderful to be here together with both of you, and I'm going to pass it on to both Sonya and Brenda.
Brenda, would you like to open us?
Yes, of course. Hi everyone. My name is Brenda. I'm really excited to be here with all of you, and I'm really grateful for the curators of this event to have had me over again. My job today is to open up the space as a healing, safe space for everyone. We're gonna do a little bit of just grounding and just mindfulness to get started on this event that is going to be about trauma, which can open up a lot of feelings. So this first part is just so we are able to be here right now and just able to receive all the amazing information that is about to be given to us. So anyone who feels called to doing this, just beginning grounding exercise, you're welcome to. You're not obligated to, but I think it's special. So if you are able to and would like to, just please start rolling your shoulders back and just deep belly breaths. Make your stomach feel really big and breathe all the way out. And just roll your shoulders back and just breathe. Just feel and do a scan of your body of where there's tension and where you feel like there's stress of the day, of the month, of the year, of the pandemic. And just feel it. And if you feel called to, you can stretch and just like move your body. Just, we've been in Zoom, if you've been in school and work, this is the time to just expand and get ready for receiving this amazing opportunity that we're getting. Now, if you guys could join me and you feel called to and safe to do this, you can just grab your hands together and start rubbing them, create some heat and energy in them. And wherever in your body that feels a lot of tension, just place your hands there and just start touching them and just giving yourself human connection and human touch from yourself. Just a little bit of love that we haven't gotten today, parts of our body that are forgotten. Just anywhere in your body that feels like it needs a little bit of extra love and extra touch. As you're doing this, just keep doing your belly breaths and just remember that you're safe and this is a safe space. And you can repeat after me. I am here and I am safe. And throughout this workshop, anytime that you feel like there's a lot of feelings coming up and you feel like you're disassociating a little bit or it's too much, just remember this mantra. I am here and I am safe, and do your belly breaths. And it's a really good way to just bring yourself back, bring yourself here. and I will be giving the mic to Sonya. And thank you all of you for coming here, and I'm so excited to learn with you.
Thank you, Brenda, for that time of bringing us to a point of calm and safety. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm so happy to see you again, even in a virtual space. And I want to thank the team from the Women's Foundation for the development, along with the California Endowment, of the Women Rising Initiative, and all of the incredible work that has gone before today. And it's been an honor for me to be a part of this space with you all. And there's just so much rich content that has been created for women and those who identify as women, to come together and listen and learn and share in a space together. So I'm really pleased to be here. I'd like to introduce you all in the Zoom space to an extraordinary person, an extraordinary woman, an extraordinary healer. Dr. Gloria Morrow is here with us. Dr. Morrow is the board secretary of the California Black Women's Health Project, a partner to the organization, and actually served as an interim executive director of the organization prior to my joining. And I bring her into this space to introduce her to all of you. She is one of the nation's leading psychologists, clinical psychologists. She's devoted her life to teaching and training others in healing, healing as a modality and a practice, and healing in support of communities. And she has some work that is really, really unprecedented in the area of healing in faith-based spaces. And she works with institutions, agencies, organizations across the nation, and really even across the world. As an academician, a clinician, she is an author. She has a television program. She's done radio. I mean, you can, if you Google her, she's very Googleable. So you will find plenty to learn about Dr. Morrow. But I thank her for joining us in this space today. And Dr. Morrow, would you like to say anything, please? Just as, just want to give you.
Well, first of all, I think the introduction of Miss Sonya was just right on point. She is just a fabulous person. We're so happy to have her lead us at the California Black Women's Health Project. But to this team and to all of you who are here, this is such a timely topic. And we know that trauma extends across race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender. Trauma is real. And so this is such a wonderful topic today. And I'm so delighted that she asked me to join her in this conversation. And I'm looking forward to spending this time. And thank you so much, Brenda, for bringing us in that space. I didn't even realize that my neck needed it like I needed it. So thank you so much for leading us in that activity.
Thank you. Thank you. And some of you have come on and you saw the flyer, and you may have been expecting Natalie Champion to join us today. Natalie is an extraordinary member of the Black Women's Health Project team, but today she is officially starting her maternity leave. And so just in this space, I want to lift up Natalie and the life and the seed that she is bringing forth. And she's having a girl, so we say that she's preparing for the next level of leadership and advocacy for the Black Women's Health Project as well.
That's right.
That's right, right? So again, I'm Sonya Aadam. I'm with the California Black Women's Health Project. And one of the very important areas of work that we do at the Black Women's Health Project is around mental health advocacy training. And we have a program, it's entitled Sisters Mentally Mobilized. And I want to tell you that what we do through this program, as well as just a general model of engagement for the organization, is that we create sister circles. We build sister circles. We support sister circles. We believe in the sister circle model of engagement for us, creating spaces and curating safe, affirming, and uplifting spaces. And for us, we do that for Black women and girls in the state of California. I do recognize that there are several of you out there who have joined us before or were a part of the organization or some kind of way you've been in sister circles with us. So I'd like to ask you all, as I'm not even sure how many people are on here currently, but I'd like to ask you all to imagine, and if you have to close your eyes, but imagine that we are in a space together, that we are in a giant circle, and that it is a continuous circle connected not only by the energy that we give off to our right and our left, but it's connected by us coming together for a common purpose, us coming together to connect around an important issue or an important topic or something that we all care about. So imagine we're in the circle, that we can see one another. And yes, I like to at least go pre-COVID and think about touching and feeling, maybe grabbing hands. So lift up your hands as if you were holding the hand of another person. You know, just imagine you were holding the hand of the sister. And if there are others in this space, that you're holding the hand of someone who identifies as being in a space together with us, and hold you just for a second and just remember what that felt like. We don't do it now, but just remember what it felt like. Okay, exhale on that, just exhale. And so we are now in circle together. And I want to ask you, I'm gonna share a slide presentation. One moment. I want also to ask you to remember that we are in a virtual space, and to remember that we are utilizing technology. So if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can see the slide presentation. Okay. So we're going to talk today or this evening about living with generational trauma. And as Dr. Morrow opened with, I mean, you know, this is not an easy topic of conversation, but it's a necessary topic of conversation. And I'd like to even ask if those of you in the space, you know, because you came on for this, you either came on to receive something, but I'd also like to imagine that you came on to contribute something to the space. And so I am very much, you know, those who know me as a facilitator, as a, you know, presenter, open to active engagement. Now, with more than 100 people, there's some challenges to that. But because Jay, and Nina are here, Dr. Morrow as well. If Carlene is out there, she's on our team. I'm asking you if you will help to sort of manage the space and to look around as much as you possibly can, because I cannot see everyone. And if you wish to engage in this presentation, if you wish to share something, if you can use the feature in the Zoom that allows you to raise your hand, I'm hoping someone will see that. If you wave your hand, I'm hoping that someone will see that. And I'm asking you to participate in this space with us. This is not me and or Dr. Morrow just speaking at you. This is a topic that I believe very much that it is important that we unpack it together, that we explore it together. There are so many experiences, and they're not all just the ones that are written down on paper and in books and in manuals. There's our own lived experience around trauma, and we would love to hear from you. So we're going to talk just, you know, as you see from the slide, you know,
Sonya, you have a hand up from Lauren.
Okay.
Dalbert.
Okay. I didn't hear that, but Lauren, do you want to unmute yourself if there's something you want to share right away?
Sure. First, thank you for hosting this. This is a very important topic to me because I came to trauma from the military and post-traumatic stress syndrome. But as I started looking at the list of all the symptoms and everything down the list, I was like, I know a lot of Black people that have that. I know a lot of Black people that have that. I know a lot of Black people that have that. And I mentioned that to my cousin, and he was like, well, you know, there's a sister down there in LA. She wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slaves, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and introduced me to multi-generational trauma. I just had my last session with my therapist last week, and he cut me loose because he says he's been working with me for 8 months. And he says, I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. He says, I have post-traumatic growth. And because, yeah, I'm in a different phase where, you know, I've been trying to troubleshoot this for 30 years as a very intelligent person who was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. You know, once I got that diagnosis for PTSD, I realized there was nothing wrong with me. I'm exactly what I'm supposed to be for what I've been through in my life.
And Lauren, that is some of what we will talk about and that we will address today. So thank you so much. I do appreciate you speaking out. Thank you. Thank you. And so we will talk about, you know, what it is and how it manifests, and then, you know, what to do. And by the time we're done, we won't have all the answers. And I'll pause through some of this, you know, just to kind of do a Zoom check. But I'm asking if our support folks out there will help with this. So I want to just share. So I love this quote by Michelle Obama. And since this is a space, you know, women rising, you know, I think about, you know, like, you know, what is it really, in a way, what does it really take for us to have like a better society? Because a lot of what we experience in terms of trauma exists because of things that are like in our communities and in our society. So I love this quote. Carlene, do you mind reading it? I mean, you're right there. Do you mind reading it?
Do I have to be back on mute? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
The difference between a broken community and a thriving one is the presence of women who are valued.
Yes, right. Michelle Obama, and, you know, given, you know, the life that she lives and, you know, how she talks about, you know, her upbringing and her life. I mean, she recognizes and appreciates the importance of us valuing one another. So today we are going to value one another in this space. And so I'm going to go on. So I just want to introduce you to, you know, we talk about trauma. I mean, there's, you know, there is the generational piece, and then there's just trauma in general. And so that acute level of trauma, you know, that one can experience. I'm so sorry. Let me go back. Forgive me. I'm using a screen where I can't, you know, see all of you. And so I'm trying to, you know, just be sure that, there we go. There we go. You know, the acute trauma is, you know, what we see as a result of a single stressful event. I mean, something really bad can happen and you feel the experience of it, or you can have a physical trauma. And then that chronic trauma is the repeated, you know, prolonged, where you see it happening and, you know, happening over and over again. And then the complex trauma where, you know, we're talking about, you know, being exposed to multiple traumatic events. So in community-based organizational work and social justice work, you know, we often talk about sort of this intersectionality and the way you can be experiencing, you know, different things going on at different times. So for many of us in this space, you know, we identify as women, you know, but we're also maybe African-American or Latina. And then we're also, you know, perhaps immigrants, or we're also, you know, descendants of this. I mean, we have these multiple ways, you know, where we could experience complex trauma that comes at us, you know, in different ways and in different directions. And Dr. Morrow, in your work, I mean, I know, you know, you look at, you know, varieties of types of trauma, but I wanted to just ask you if you could just talk to us generally, I mean, very quickly, I should say, about, you know, do you see more than 3 types of trauma? I mean, in psychology, this is kind of what, you know, psychologists look at, but can you talk to us just from your own experience about the complexities of trauma and how it manifests?
Well, absolutely. Not only do we see acute, chronic, and complex, we see secondary trauma. We call it tertiary trauma, where you weren't really there, but you experience it because you hear those stories told vicariously through someone else. And so when you're hearing that over and over again, then it causes you to experience some of the trauma. And then, of course, I know we're going to talk a little bit about racial trauma, which has its own area that we are definitely needing to understand and unpack, because if we don't deal with how that affects people and how they heal or need to heal from it, then we're going to see people who are really broken, for a long period of time.
Yes, indeed. And then Lauren, you spoke up, just, as we were, beginning about post-traumatic stress disorder and, that, trauma that we experience, that interferes with our daily life. It's like, it wasn't a single event, and it didn't even necessarily have to be multiple events. And it could manifest itself in any kind of way, but it's that constant interfering with us. And when it lasts longer than a month, it's like when we talk about, mental illness or stress or anxiety, when you feel it and then it begins to impact your life, and then it goes on and it persists for a while. And then you find yourself, now realizing I am in a conditional state of living with post-traumatic stress disorder. I actually, say, and I mean, Carlene has heard me say this, and, I worry about our community. We're living through a traumatic experience now with COVID-19, and they say we're coming out of it, so I think all the time about what does the post-COVID stress disorder look like, and what are we going to be, doing for ourselves, to address that type of healing, and how do we call on, mental health professionals, our systems, our private healthcare systems, community defined practices, like those, like I mentioned, Sisters Mentally Mobilized, and the work we do to address what we are preparing ourselves for, which is this post-COVID stress disorder, which is similar to PTSD, or a type of PTSD, or as Lauren mentioned, post-traumatic slave disorder, from the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy. And so let's, look at then just around generational trauma. So, we talk about trauma, we could be talking about something that's happening in the here and now, like COVID-19, I feel like we went through a politically traumatic event recently. But when you look at generational trauma, this is a legacy of trauma, that shows up, from events and experiences that continue to resonate. So it's like, you know of an event that happened in the past, but this is something that is continuing to resonate with people. So, and Dr. Murrow mentioned the tertiary trauma, how you weren't even there, but you are experiencing, this, the trauma that happened, previously. And then that the trauma, it can be transgenerational. I mean, it can continue. It's like, when you think about, when we'll get to racial trauma shortly, but, the post-traumatic slave syndrome, or you look at, this legacy of slavery, there are people who are saying, well, Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about post, but are we really out of that? Or are we just living in, contemporary, examples of that same type of slavery, whether it's slavery of our minds or our economies or the communities that we live in. And then we talk about this trauma that's just been passed down from generation to generation. Dr. Murrow, like when you think about that type of trauma, what would be an example for you of trauma that's just passed down from one generation to the next to the next?
Well, it's critical. I think that if you imagine let's just talk about slavery, for example, because I think there are different examples. We could talk about the Holocaust. We could talk about a lot of different events that happened where people were severely traumatized. And you just imagine that a woman she gets up in the morning and goes to feed her children, then all of a sudden somebody comes and takes her children away. And they're never seen again, or takes the husband or the partner away. So now I'm definitely passing this down generationally because I'm dealing with PTSD, depression, anxiety, probably suicidality, all kinds of things are happening. And then when we talk about these things because of an oral tradition, especially in the Black community, then we pass those stories on. And so we see that generational effect of what happened all those many, 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 many years ago that have affected us even today. And I mean, it has affected us in racial ethnic identity development. It has affected us in terms of us seeing ourselves as, being equal to other people. It has affected us in a lot of different ways. And I think we're still reeling from that even today in 2021.
Yes, we are. And I know that there are many of you out there from, multiple, cultures, ethnicities. You've come from, different countries. You've come from places where you have experienced trauma. You've come from, family lives where you have seen, things happen to you generation after generation. This work here is this is from the American Psychological Association, readily accessible, just talking about the impact of all of that, on the survivors, and then what it looks like. How do we understand it, cope with it, and heal from it? So just going back briefly to racial trauma, we're working on a project now. It's called Art for Healing the Weary Soul. And the facilitator of it, his name is Yvonne Evans out of Sacramento, has created an art program and has asked the members of the circle that she's facilitating to use like an image that looks at, where we've come from and where we are. And this image was created by, one of the sisters, and I thought it was so powerful because it's showing a slave ship, and it's showing, like the motherland on one end as Blacks and African Americans refer to the African continent. And then, it's like sea, and then the tail, which if you can see it, it has like the American flag almost, in the tail. And it's just showing, like what happens, like this middle passage as we refer to it. But this quote that, this person, when they posted it to our Facebook page, they said there was so much taken from us than just our bodies, such as our culture, religion, leadership, confidence, humanity, wombs, families, and more. And they tell us to get over it. And SMH, you all know that, I'm just shaking my head. This is the impact of that racial trauma. And Dr. Morrow, you mentioned it earlier. It's the reference to these events and experiences, that if you are, living, a life as an African American, Latino, Native American, Asian Pacific Islander, in a society where you feel marginalized and you feel those sometimes dramatic experiences of racial trauma. And sometimes, we call them the microaggressions or the slights or the, but it's ongoing feeling of the complex trauma that comes out of, racial and traumatic stress. And like it's written here, it can be discreet, but it refers to you being exposed to these experiences over a long period of time to a point where it becomes toxic. And, that toxic stress, has its impact on us mentally and physically. So let's talk about some of the causes. I mean, I know that there's some of you out there, and I would even like it. I mean, if you're okay, I mean, you'll see what we are referring to here as causes. And these are some that have just come from, literature and, some of the things that we, know and experience. But if you have a cause of generational trauma that you've experienced or you're aware of that is not here, I would love it if you would put it in the chat. Please add it to the chat. I mean, we should grow this list in part because, as we'll talk about later, identifying it is important, is a stage to potential healing. But you look at the institutional, types of generational trauma, the enslavement, we talked about slavery, that structural racism that we see that exists in our government systems and in some of our social systems, our education system, and then genocide. There are, examples of genocide across the globe, and some, are historical. You've got like, the genocide and of Armenians in Turkey, and some people don't even make a reference to that. You've got genocides in African countries and Rwanda. You've got genocides that are happening in Asian countries, and for Native Americans. There are many Native American communities that continue to live and to navigate and try to cope through the historical trauma and the generational trauma of genocide of that community. Poverty, if you are, grew up in a culture where you have experienced such extreme poverty, that can contribute to the generational trauma. Religious persecution, we know, for Muslims living in America, that's a challenge. For now, even Muslims living, we hear on the news, living in China, they're suffering significant religious persecution. And then incarceration. In our society, for Black and Brown communities, mass incarceration, for generations is contributing to extreme trauma on our communities. And I say particularly on children who are growing up in households, where parents are incarcerated. And then the interpersonal trauma. Dr. Morrow, can you talk about, some of these, please?
Well, absolutely. When young people are experiencing child physical abuse and sexual abuse, and human trafficking, all these things that you've mentioned, it is very, very traumatizing, and it affects their lives throughout their lifetime if they aren't able to get some help and get some healing done, because those wounds are really great. And I always liken it to this: when there is an open wound, it has to be cleaned out. And after it's cleaned out, then you have to put in some healing potion, to help people to heal. And I think people are missing these steps because number one, we have still a lot of health disparities, mental health disparities, sometimes because the institution of mental health has been traditionally oppressive. So people don't want to seek help. So there are a lot of reasons that people are staying away from those institutions that were designed or supposedly designed to be helpful. And that's why organizations like the California Black Women's Health Project and some of those projects that you are undertaking is so powerful, because it helps us to have more community-based efforts to try to heal. And you're calling them, the Women Speak and all of those different things, but I'm telling you, they are healing circles. That's what they are, healing circles. And we need to have healing circles because of all of the institutional and interpersonal causes of trauma. And a few people wrote in the chat box different things, and they wanted to remind us that it's not just racism, it's all these isms, that we face. It's all of the groups that are marginalized in America. I just read recently how the Asian community is the new persecuted group. And so we've got to remember that everyone has experienced some level of trauma. But like Dr. King said, as long as one of us is oppressed, we are all oppressed. And so we've got to get healthy so we can help the many people who are still dealing with trauma.
Very well said. And, this is why I'm glad, and I appreciate you bringing up what's in the chat, because this is why I'm glad that we are together in a multicultural space today and in this circle, where we can look across from one another, and we're not always, certain of what another person has experienced. And so please, more and more in the chat, if you could just, continue to share what you are aware of as causes of generational trauma. And the isms, we always refer to the isms, in the work that we do. The classism, the sexism, the racism, all of the isms, that, continue to cause undue stress. And that we carry with us, on from generation to generation to generation. And I just wanted to mention too, that for some of the interpersonal causes that we see, some of those, they have, like sort of a mixed, they can be, a manifestation of something, and then they can also be the cause of something. And Dr. Morrow, you mentioned the healing, the women's healing circles that we do. We recently even started doing, in the last 18 months, doing some healing circles for Black men.
Yes.
It's our Anti-Violence Ventures project. I'm just mentioning it because, recognizing this intersection or this intrinsic connection between, women's experiences and men's experiences. And, we can't ignore, that many of them are dealing with, some of these same institutional and interpersonal trauma that we see.
Absolutely.
And then there's just the contributors to trauma. We kind of talked about, some of these, the criminal justice system or immigration system, workplace culture. I mean, those are things that contribute to, the trauma that we experience. And then, of course, the interpersonal piece you can see there. So just even talking about, some of the symptoms, though, of the trauma, this is where, and there is a slide in here because I want to say, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And which is not just the health pandemic, just COVID, but now even an economic pandemic that is causing so much incredible stress and anxiety in our lives. And so, we're adding that on top of, kind of the existing generational trauma that we're already living with. So I just, I kind of want to stop for just a moment because, if there is a single person of the 100 or so of you on the Zoom who has never experienced some of these symptoms, I would love it if you would put in the chat that you have not. And I would almost bet that there's no one out there who hasn't experienced, sadness, some psychological symptoms, some level of anxiety or depression, increased aggression, where you have felt, if you have experienced trauma, it's likely that you are experiencing, some of these or multiple of these symptoms. And these are the signs and the ways that we recognize, what trauma looks like in us. And as we're living through it, sometimes we don't see it. But one of the areas of work for the Black Women's Health Project is that we train Black women through Sisters Mentally Mobilized to recognize the signs and the symptoms, so that when you see these things in others, you can begin to ask questions that are more centered around, not what's wrong with you, but, what happened to you? What happened to you? And so is there anything in the chat is anybody saying, I've never experienced any signs or symptoms? And I almost would love to hear, I wouldn't have thought so. And so, and again, some of these signs and symptoms, are also, it's like cause and effect. So some people are exhibiting behavior or exhibiting, things that are a result of the trauma that they've experienced in their lives previously. So I wanted, Dr. Morrow, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago about healing and what healing requires. And so just, you mentioned that the wound needs to be cleaned,
Yeah.
And so that even occurs. So, we think about trauma, it results in a wound, it results in, it causes a strain on us that sometimes opens up a part of us in our heart. So I just want to talk just about general wound healing, like, a physical wound. You get a cut, a scrape, you get a stab here in your leg, or you get a scratch somewhere that's, really bad. These stages of wound healing, the clotting, and then the need for it to swell up, for new tissue to come over it, and then for it to close and to begin to mature. Is healing possible when it comes to generational trauma? And can we just ask that in the chat? Can you just put yes or no? Healing is possible from generational trauma. And just give it a second. Do you see head nods or this way or that way?
We're getting a lot of yes.
Yes, healing is possible from generational trauma. Okay. All right. So when I, think about healing, I saw this, post, and, you see memes, all over, social media or, somewhere. When I saw this one, it made me think of, how complex and how fragile it is, but we acknowledge that a thing is a problem. And it says, when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining all of you, all of my sisters, all of you, women, all of those of you who identify as women, in this space. I imagine you as flowers. And I imagine you as, something beautiful growing up out of sometimes an environment and the soil, that is not really cultivating, the best of you. And I just imagine that, we work on the soil, we work on the air, we work on the water, those symbolic things that are around us that impact, how we grow. And so when we talk about healing, there are these stages. So we acknowledge, what our pain is, and then we talk about these stages of healing. And yes, it's possible to heal from trauma. Yes, it is. But then it's also sometimes, in my view, not possible unless the trauma doesn't continue to persist. If the trauma is continuous and the wound is continuously pricked and opened and poked and disturbed repeatedly, then for me, I don't know how possible it is to heal from that. You can cope and you can cover it and you can bandage it, but I'm not sure about, true healing. But let's talk about the stages of healing. So psychologists say, and Dr. Merle, please step in on this, that the stages of healing from trauma are, basically getting to safety. So when we speak about generational trauma, are you safe now from the trauma that happened in the past that has had continuously plagued you, but are you safe? Have you established a place of safety? And then telling our story. I mean, that is, we support that, a great deal in the work that we do. Telling our story. There are some people who say, though, every time I tell the story, it hurts again and again. So Dr. Morrow, this is, as a psychologist, I'd love to hear from you on this. And then
Yes.
reconnecting with others, like basically finding a space, where we can share together, this is what I've experienced. And you're connecting with people who, who understand what you've been through, who in many cases have been there too. So if you just talk about the...
Yes, retelling the story. Before you can tell the story and retell it, you're absolutely correct. You have to establish safety. And that person has to feel like they've made some steps towards their healing before they are ready to retell that story. Because sometimes people can become re-traumatized. I've sat with people and they've tried to, tell even me their story, and they're just torn up because it's still so fresh. And the thing about PTSD and other things that may be going on with the person, when they're talking about it, it's like they're there. They're at the scene of the crime. And so we have to make sure that we allow for space. That's why I love what Brenda did today. And what you've done too, Sonya, is to remind us that we are in a space, and that space has to feel safe in order for me to feel like I can recover from this thing. And I think that we have to allow for that time. And unfortunately, sometimes in our systems of care, there isn't a lot of time. If you have 6 to 8 sessions, or you're with a therapist that believes that their goals are more important than your goals, and your process is different from their process, and they're trying to pull you into their process, it can be damaging. So you've got to be in healthy places, and that's why those healing circles are so good. And lastly, one of the things that happened with the wars of the past, men and women, with mostly men, because there weren't a lot of women in combat, But when they would leave Vietnam or those other wars, they came home by ship. And while they are on the ship, they are there with everybody who has also been a part of the same experience. So when those people came home, the likelihood of them being a little healthier was greater than when they now get on a plane and they're home in 12 to 14 hours or 16 hours. And they have to think about what they've been through, but they can't talk about it to anyone because no one has experienced it, even the people in their lives. And so we've got to definitely have safety. And I almost think it's the other way around. I think we have to really reconnect with others and be around people who are supportive and who may have gone through
Yes.
similar situations. And then I think I might be able to retell my story.
Hmm. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. That's really valuable. And I'm glad you used the example of, what happens, previously in times when travel took longer for people to get somewhere and the men would come home on ships. If any of you out there are, health workers, who are, working during this time of COVID, I lift you up and I want to give you my tremendous support because you are living likely through a continuous time of trauma, and you go home, you sleep 8 hours or you sleep and then you come back the next day and you're in it again. And I mean, the need to find safe spaces, for what you're dealing with is so critically important at this time. It's so critically important. So, as Dr. Morrow is talking about retelling of the story, so this opportunity in this space, we're not able to really do that because of, just sort of the nature of the way this is set up. But find those spaces, as she mentioned, find those circles, find those opportunities to begin to tell your story and to recount it. And there is strength in your storytelling that not only helps you, but it helps the person hearing the story. And you never know when your story will be the key to unlock someone else's prison. And so I encourage that, as much as possible. And one of the other things that we talk about, as approaches to healing trauma is this thing around coping and what does coping look like? And so I always tell people, they're like, we're going to heal from this slavery, or this is a time of healing, or this is how we, come together for a healing circle. And I tell them, I said, well, for me, it feels more like a coping circle. And, in our lives, we want to try to find ways as we cope through things, not to cope with things that continue to add to our problems, so if we're coping with drinking, or if we're using, other things, or if we're shopping too much, or if we're using, adverse behavior as a coping, we know that that's going to be a problem. But this quote really stood out for me. Coping isn't healing. It's just stacking the trauma on the shelf until they collapse under the weight. And so in some ways, this is true, but there's also, ways that we cope until we get to a better place. We cope until we get to, that safe space that Dr. Morrow talked about earlier, so that there are effective ways to cope. And I was wondering if any of you would put in the chat, or if anybody even wanted to just speak very briefly about, a coping mechanism that you have, that's really empowering, that you would feel okay to share with us. Can you just watch to see if you can share it in the chat, or if it's something that somebody wants to share, a coping technique or a coping mechanism very briefly that they have? Is there anyone? Okay.
Swimming, chocolate writing, and also to Dr. Morrow and to Sonya, there was a question that, given the limitations of our existing mental health system and all the barriers to appropriate trauma care, what recommendations do you have for trauma survivors to find the support they need for long-term healing? Are healing circles widely available?
So I'll say that we do acknowledge, the limitations on our healthcare system, and previous to COVID. I mean, we know now, that, the limitations have even grown. I believe very strongly, and our work with the Black Women's Health Project speaks to this, that there are community-defined evidence practices, community-defined, culturally centered, gender-specific, if that is appropriate for you, circles, spaces, systems. There are places in communities that you can find to address, your trauma, that are they're looking for you. We can share some. I mean, I can even maybe ask, Jay and the staff at the Women's Foundation about possibly sending out some resources, after we're done here. But there are up and down the state of California. I'll tell you, there's this project, the California Reducing Disparities Project, and there are 35 culturally rich and, ethnic specific or gender specific or, designed for youth or children, that are working to bring about, healing, to communities that aren't necessarily able to get it in the traditional mental health care or the healthcare system. Yeah. So we can definitely provide that. Dr. Morrow?
Yeah, and there are also these new circles called wounding, healing from wounds circles as well. We're seeing more and more, especially in Northern California. There's a lot of innovative work that's going forward to help people to come together who are trying to heal from their wounds. So I think that's great. And I want to just say one more thing about coping. You're absolutely right. Coping really isn't healing. But once you have gone through a significant amount of healing, you still need to be able to cope because new things will come. So you have to have things in your toolkit. And these people on this I almost said show, on this show today, in this space, they have given some wonderful ways that people cope and that they are coping. And we have to have those in operation as well. So even if you have done some healing work, you still need to have tools to cope because something new will emerge and it'll throw you back if you don't have those tools. So it's really good to see so many people have powerful, positive ways of coping.
Yes.
My name is Mei Seng, and I tried to type in the chat box, but I wasn't able to. So I wanted to share, one thing that about healing and a safe space that you all talk about. I think, I agree 100% and more because, I work with, abuse, population, women in general. So it's really, really important that, they are able to connect with the people who they are working with. For example, I work in the emergency shelter so that, the time at the shelter is limited. And then, they build a relationship, they can trust us. But, as soon as they trust us, they have to move on to the next, stage of the life. So what we do is that, usually we create a safe space for them to open up a little bit to be able to share and feel safe to share. And then, from there on, we have to also, making sure that they continue to get the care, they need. So oftentimes that we refer them to the community, agency for, continued care and say, for example, therapists to support them. But challenges is that, I think especially, language, always, trouble, not every agency had the language, spoken, by our resident. And another thing is that, we are working with people, say, for example, undocumented, population. It's so incredible challenging to connect them to, resources that, more supportive to them. Yeah,
Yes,
so
thank you.
yeah.
Yes, 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 I understand that. I understand that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And that sounds like such important work, and we just commend you for that work
Thank,
that you're doing.
yeah, thank you for letting me
Oh,
share.
of course, of course. I appreciate it very much. And then there is another, sort of healing modality or coping modality or, way that we often talk about how trauma is dealt with. And that is, through resilience. And, on our team, they know that, I have, some challenges with resilience because I do think that sometimes it attempts to normalize harm and problems. But, the psychological associations, look at the process of adapting well as healing, adapting well, like through a situation, basically coming through, coming through okay, effectively. And I'll just show you just like a couple of definitions of resilient. And you think about yourself, like, adaptable. I do appreciate adaptable. I feel like, and flexible, yes. But pliable and durable, I'm not sure. To me, those make it sound like something that you could put to the test whenever you wanted to, and then you can see whether or not it survived a test. And that's sometimes how I look at resiliency, although I know that with intention, it's meant to imply that, we are, getting through or getting by, or as, again, the Psychological Association says, it's this process of adapting well. So sometimes, we we come out because we're dressed well, or we speak well, or we present well. So people say, oh, you're really resilient in the face of that trauma. You're really resilient in the face of that harm that's been done to you or that's being continuously done to you. But, for me, tough and sturdy, stout, those are not exactly, adjectives that I want to manifest all the time, or that I want to exhibit, or that I want to feel as if I have to be in the face of trauma. And, so, when we go back to, here, and we look at, some of the symptoms, if you are feeling depressed or anxious, if you are feeling sad, if you are exhibiting, nervousness, please don't think like, oh, I'm not resilient, or I'm not, like showing myself to be resilient, because resiliency is, is possible and can be good, but also, it can be problematic for us if we are, living through something and just, demonstrating our hardiness or our toughness. So, and if anybody has comments about resiliency, please share them, because, most people do say it's not normalizing your harm or your struggle. That it doesn't mean that you have to forget what happened to you. It doesn't mean, that you're acting as if you haven't been through something. And it's not just about bouncing back or accepting your harm. But sometimes I do, feel like, that's what resiliency is asking of me. When people comment on our community, when people comment on, the plight of Black women in particular, and they say, but you all are so strong, but you all are so resilient. And, for many of us, and, you all could let us know, for some other cultures, for many of us, we wear, that resiliency, like as a badge of honor. We wear like a cape around us, and we go out like we're going to save the world. But, we are wearing ourselves down and sometimes wearing ourselves out. And so think about, even in your own life, if you're coping, with a resiliency lens around you, or a strength lens around you, or I have to be strong, be careful with that. I mean, Dr. Murrow, anything you want to share
Yeah,
on that?
you're right on it, because I think yes, we have, as women, just as women, we have been through a lot, and women can have a baby on your hip and be frying the bacon, and have just gone out to get the money to buy the bacon, and you're talking to the bill collector, and you're doing all of that at one time. So yes, we've had to do that, but what it has done, it has torn us down. And then the other thing it's done, it's made us even resistant to seek help. We think we have to be resilient. We have to be strong. If we're not, then there's something wrong with us. And so I think we have to allow ourselves to be okay to not be okay.
Yes.
You know, I've got to be okay sometimes to just say, I'm not okay. And then to seek that support system that I have in my life, or to seek help from a trained mental health professional that I have vetted, and I have made sure that person understands my cultural world, not just as a Black woman, but as a woman, that they understand how to help me. And when we do that, then we can get the help we need. But I think a lot of us have been under this myth that we are strong and we can survive and we're going to do everything, but we're walking around broken. And far too many of us are suffering in silence.
Mhm. And in order to, really, think about how do we, sort of put a break in this generational healing, one of the things is not to continue to perpetuate it to the next generation.
Mhm.
So to find, your space, find your healing, find your way of not passing that down to your next generation.
Mhm.
So if you have children, nieces, nephews, young people who, you have a great influence on, I say, like, let that, to the greatest degree possible, let that buck stop with you.
Mhm.
Let it stop with you. And let's say we're going to break this up, because like these memes say, I mean, just because you carried it all so well, and for some of us, we're carrying it well, it's on our back. I mean, Carlene on this, she knows we talk about it sometimes. For us, we talk about things like, fibroids. We talk about some of the things in our body, some of the things that, like seem as if they are like the evidence of a continuous level of toxic stress around us, and the generational trauma that we are living with. But just because we're carrying it so well doesn't mean it isn't heavy.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and this meme on yesterday is heavy, put it down. It
Mhm.
is easier said than said than done, but we work together to
Mhm.
do it. We work together to do it. And in
Yeah.
spaces like this where we can talk about it, where we can say it out loud, where we can point it out, and where we can, flag it, and allow other people, to share it, and to not tell them that's in the past, or, oh, we're still talking about that,
Or get over it.
or get over it. Those are
Sonya, before you move though, someone asked a question about what do you do when you hear all this trauma all the time? So I don't know if you're going to touch that, but I think we need to talk about a little bit about self-care, because when people are constantly bombarded by trauma, you go home with some of the symptoms. You have been dealing with it vicariously through the lives of the people that you've been talking to. So you have to definitely engage in mindfulness, making sure you're being true to how you're feeling. And you've got to have someone that you can talk to, your support system, your positive people. And that will help you to be able to process all that information you're taking in. You got to learn how to laugh, have fun, do some things that make you feel good. You've got to be able to do that, because if not, that trauma just rests within you. And then you start exhibiting some of the signs and symptoms of PTSD, depression, and anxiety.
very true, very true. And the vicarious trauma, is what we take on as healers. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm imagining that so many of you in this space, are here because you probably are working in some sector somewhere, where you are, you are supporting the healing of others.
Right.
I see Ludine Pierre, and she's an advocate who has worked with us in the Inland Empire on here, and she is a healer. I mean, she works in this space, and I think about her, it's like you're continuing to learn in the work, but you found a sister circle because you were ensuring that you had a space, for yourself, because healers need healing.
Absolutely. And you know what? We walk around with compassion fatigue. And that's another whole conversation, but we are dealing with the situation. We haven't experienced it ourselves, but we are sick because of what we've experienced from others. So we have to really take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So we are, at just about 6:15, and I want to see, are there any questions in the chat that, we should be addressing before we, move on to, have some time? We're going to have Brenda come back on and, spend some time with us so that as healers, we can, exhale and exit this space in a way that's safe. Is there anything we should be answering from the chat, or is there anything anyone is just burning to share? I see somebody wrote about compassion fatigue. Yeah, wow. Yes. That is a thing. Yeah, when we are weary and well-doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the cost of caring. When you care about people, compassion fatigue is that cost. And so we won't feel burned out, but we won't feel like ourselves. And so we've got to make sure we're taking care of ourselves in this struggle we're in.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you all so much for your time.
Sonia?
And attention. Yes.
I did have a question. Hi, this is Lucia Corral Peña.
Oh, hi, Lucia.
Thank you. This has been so replenishing. But my question is around spreading the practice that you and Dr. Gloria are talking about. So I know California Black Women's Health Project does it. You have the circles that you mentioned, but I'm wondering, is this something that you see kind of spreading to other organizations or practices that other folks are taking up? Or if somebody wanted to kind of adapt or copy you, what do you call it? Copy is copying
is the greatest form of flattery.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm gonna
imitation.
I knew you would know because you have great quotes. You've had great quotes throughout the presentation, but I'm curious just about the spread of this practice, and do you see that happening?
I certainly see it happening, and I see it as a necessity, given the healthcare, the mental health care climate that we've lived in even previous to COVID. I see the need for, alternative spaces that are developed. And Lucia, you mentioned that we do it. I mean, we train hairstylists, to recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma and mental health. I mean, we are the need to, and Dr. Morrow has spent a lot of time training, faith-based, laypersons and leaders, because, when you're in spaces like that, if you're the barber or the, beautician or, the person in church, you need to, to be able to participate in providing a different level of care, and a care that is complementary and gap filling, for traditional mental health spaces. It's just necessary. And with COVID, we, and Lucia, I mean, she's a part of the Blue Shield of California Foundation. I hope you don't mind me telling everybody that on here. But, the Blue Shield of California Foundation, is supporting innovative work, to address the complexities around domestic violence, and so that is trauma, the historical things that victims and perpetrators are experiencing. We have to look at these things, in ways that are, more than just sort of one-sided, because, what our communities are experiencing is, I mean, it's dire. It's dire. I mean, although, I want you all to leave, and I know Brenda's going to bring us to a place, because we don't want to hang up like as if there's no hope, because we are the hope. We are the hope. Every screen that is here, we are the hope.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can find this kind of training, across some other organizations. I mean, I can't identify them all right now, especially outside of the African-American community. But I know that there are other communities that are training advocates and building activists, to support healing in our communities.
Right. And it's a well-documented program that the California Black Women's Health Project has done. And so it's to be a model. It's not to be just totally exclusive to one group. So I think it's wonderful. Remember Brewster Place and Beloved and all these films that saw women coming together to provide support. And so we know that it's real and that it's helpful. So we hope that people all over the world will understand the importance of women gathering together for healing.
Mm-hmm.
And men.
Yeah, I was going to say sister circles are, that's an evidence-based practice, for as a healing modality in the Black community. But I know that these types of sister circles can work in other communities across other cultures. I know in Native American spaces, that there are, circles of healing where people come together to learn and to share and to, and to bring about healing for them, the circle itself and the community around it. We always say in our space, the circle needs you, you need the circle, and the community needs the circle. There's lots of things going on at the same time. So can we invite Brenda, please, if you wouldn't mind? I mean, unless there's something that, a question that's burning or.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Dr. Morrow, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
I told her we bring the grassroots and the community and the clinical and the space together, and that I think is what's necessary. I think that's very necessary for what we're talking about here. And so thank you to the Women's Foundation, to Bia, Nina, to Jay and the team, and to all of the members of the committee, of the Women Rising Committee. It's good to be in space with all of you as usual. It's good to be in space. Thank you.
Brenda?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I think it's like, I feel very moved right now, and I'm like almost like a little shaking, because I think it's so refreshing to hear such an honest and vulnerable place of speaking of resilience, and not just like, you're really strong and you're awesome, but like seeing the other side of this wide spectrum of like, there's so much in the middle. There's days we don't want to carry this around. And I think it's amazing, and just, it's really moving. I feel it a lot. And thank you for sharing this information, and thank you for having this. So I would like to share, I have shared in the chat this mantra that if anyone feels called to say with me after I tell you a little story really fast. So if you identify with your womb, you can say womb, but if you identify with your heart, you can say heart. And I have added both options, so you are free to use whatever is more comfortable for you. So this is a story about the Munaki tribe in the Amazon. It is a story about triumph and about community and women coming together. Women in the Amazon of this tribe decided they no longer wanted to live in suffering, and they no longer wanted to be suppressed. So they came in community, just like we are today, and they decided to honor their wombs and honor their existence as women, as divine beings, as birth givers. And they decided to have this ritual called the womb rite, the 13 womb rite. And it's this beautiful ritual where candles and mandalas, but we're not going to do that right now. But everything comes with intention. So if you all could just raise your hands and we can all say this together. And what we're going to be saying is the womb is a place to, it's not a place to store fear or pain. The womb, it's a place to create and give birth to life. And it's on the chat. So if you would like to say it and you want to join me, it's a really beautiful mantra to say together. And we can start together. The womb is not a place to store fear or pain. The womb, it's to create and give birth to life. And we can say it again. The womb, it's not a place to store fear or pain. The womb, it's to create and give birth to life. And then one last time, holding your womb and just like feeling everything we just learned and the energy and feeling all the spectrum of feelings that came out of this presentation. And we can just honor our womb and our heart in this one last time that we say this together. The womb, it's not a place to store fear or pain. The womb, it's to create and give birth to life. And we can just hold it for a little bit, a second, and just really honor that part of ourselves. Just honor everything we've been through and everything we have to go through every day to just be alive, and just thank ourselves for showing up every day and just being alive. We're just grateful for that. Thank you. And I'm just gonna leave you guys with this little poem affirmation. I embrace my fear, so I embrace my freedom. I release my pain, so I may embrace my joy. I release my anger, so I may embrace my compassion. I release my sadness, so I may embrace my peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And thank you so much for Dr. Gloria, Sonya, California Black Women's Health Project for this wonderful, powerful presentation. And I just want to congratulate Sonya, who will be receiving an honor from the Legislative Black Caucus for her work as an unsung hero. So congratulations. Thank you. Now we would like to turn it over to lighter part of our evening, which is the raffle. And I would like to introduce Dulce. Dulce is with the